where the drama starts. Lap 30, 8 laps to go. Sandobi hoping to take advantage of these lapped cars. Poleski dives onto the right side, very aggressive here. This is lap 4. The two Viceroys, Bill Frazier ahead of Matt Poleski. Frazier's off. Frazier hit the grass. You hit that tire wall, your day is done. Well, now it's lap 20. The Williams still trying to get around the Terrell team as he'll go around the left car and around those at the same time. At the same time, he's got the inside corner. Will he ride the curb? Yes, he will. He will get him on the inside. Vito Maria leading us all into Moss's corner. Look at the beauty as his right side will cook the grass. Oh, a 180, no, a 360. Oh. Who will yield going into this corner? It's really not meant for too wide as it will be Gernot. Gernot will yield. Lots of smoke picking up from that Williams car. He is pushing it to the absolute limit. 26 of 30 now. Only 4 laps to go. He's going to get the run coming out the final corner. He's going to pull up side by side with the leader. It's going to be a drag race to the finish. Who is going to get there first? It's going to be...
Had Niki Lauda's infamous crash at the Nürburgring not happened back in 1976, we could have seen the Lotus 79 at this circuit some 40 years ago. But the way it is, we have had to wait until today for these classic F1 cars to dart around the Nordschleife, and the wait has definitely been worth it. This is round 8 of the Lotus 79 Classic Team Championship, and you're going to get to see all of the action unfold live here on the Global SimRacing Channel. Hi, I'm Samuel Ryman, and alongside me in the booth is Richie Hearn. Behind the scenes we have our director, the Dr. Amjad Yamin, and he is using camera sets provided by our camera guru, Dougie Beard. Richie, Nürburgring, Nordschleife is a track that needs little introduction. Now correct me if I'm wrong though, but I don't think you ever got to race an IndyCar around here.
That is absolutely correct. Thank you, Sam. Yep, I've never been around this track in an IndyCar or anything like that. This place is wonderful to drive, affectionately known as the Green Hell. It's a 12.93 miles long. It has a total of 154 turns. It takes a while to learn this place. They hosted GP races through 1976 when Lauda had his crash, but they stopped racing here because of the it was impossible at the time to properly marshal it. The track is still used for GT racing. They have the 24 hours of Nürburgring there for the GT3 cars. They do a lot of supercar testing and a lot of drive and drives. It's a wonderful place. But the best way to get a glimpse of this place, let's jump on board the GSRC lap guide.
All right, we've got Johan Orlampi in the GSRC Lotus 79, so let's do a lap around the Nürburgring. First corner up is the north curve, and the downhill braking will make it easy to overshoot it. Now we're going to skip ahead to the important parts of the lap since we don't have time for a full one. A critical set of corners is High Oaks. This right-left combo takes you onto a long, flat-out stretch where you won't be braking until Ehrenberg. Make sure you get a good exit. Up ahead, the Swedish Cross is flat out, but make sure to stay to the left and brake as deep as you dare. Ehrenberg has some good camber, but it's gone wrong for all kinds of drivers over the years. Still, you're likely to see some attempts at overtaking here. Skipping over the foxhole to compression, you've got a blind swing into Oudenauer Forst. As the track weaves back and forth, you're constantly slowing the car. Take it wide into the last left-hander so that you can get onto the power early as it veers back right. Later on in the track, once we're heading downhill, you've got to weave through the Spiegel curve and then get ready for miss-hit-miss. Use the apexes like the name implies. Still plunging downward in elevation, you've got the awkward braking for Defense Valley. There's no room to the outside, so be sure not to lock the brakes. Fast forwarding to the bottom of the Great Climb, the Lauda kink won't require a lift, but Bergwerks is as critical as ever. Send it in deep, but always be sure to bring it back in for that late apex and then get on the power early. You won't be braking all the way up the hill until here at Steilstrecke. I've always found it hard to get the car to turn in here, no matter which car I'm in. Be easy on the throttle on your way out to avoid wheel spin, then line up the car for the carousel. It is going to be very bumpy through here, and you really can't get back fully on the gas until you're out of the banking. Once again jumping ahead, let's look at the ice curve. Supposedly it's called that because it takes a long time to dry in wet weather, but I think it's just hard to find grip in general. Stay off the curbs and try to straight line these S's. Make sure to line up the car on the left, and though you still get light over the jump into Flansgarden, you won't get air like most cars do. Double apex the uphill, and then we're going to skip over to Swallowtail. You're slowing and turning with a fast right-hander, but be sure to keep the car tucked to the right for the best line over the crested left-hander. Pretty quickly, you've got to swing through the mini carousel, which flies by much faster than its bigger cousin. Then comes the most important corner on the track, Gallows Hill. Getting through that first bit cleanly is important so that you can get your foot flat to the floor and power your way out to the Dottinger Hoa. This thing goes on for over 2 kilometers. At the end of it is Tiergarten. It's just a quick squiggle, but then Hohenron presents a lot more difficult proposition of slowing while turning and then avoiding the tall curbs on either side. The weirdly named Turn 13 is all that stands between you and the finish. So with that, we've now completed a lap around the Nürburgring.
So that's just a bit of a lap around here at the Nürburgring. We could watch one lap, but then the race would have started by the time we get going here. So let's click off a few items on our to-do list, beginning with a look at the championship stand-ins. And the reason we're hurrying through this, these drivers have already qualified in a separate session, so we'll find out where they're gridding up here momentarily. Journo Frisch has a 106-point lead over Anti-Lepisto once you account for 3 of the 4 drop weeks that the drivers will get during this season. Martin Gramberg, sitting back here, hasn't used up any points in his drop weeks. He hasn't been at all of the races, is what that means there. So he's got to be hoping for solid performances throughout the rest of the season. Pablo Suarez still being consistent, 4th there in points, tied with the American John Stevens back there in 5th place. Let's have a look at the team stand-ins, and we'll bring those up to you. It's pretty much been the story of Olivier versus Ferrari for the last few rounds, and that continues to be the case. And you already see here, we're accounting for 2 drop weeks, and the teams will only get 2 drop weeks throughout the whole season. And even when you do that, it's still close with Olivier, just 8 markers over Ferrari, McLaren, Ram, and 2 teams tied back there for 5th place. I don't think that's a team name. I think we do have 2 teams tied for 5th position. Richie, let's take a look at our series info.
Yeah, we're coming up on our series info here. We're round 8 of 12. We do have 4 driver drops and 2 team drops, as Sam mentioned. This is going to be an 8-lap race. Doesn't sound like much, but it's a long racetrack. Setups are open. They don't need to stop for fuel, so they just kind of keep going. No pit stops unless you got some damage. They do have their standard 17x incident cap, although if you get that many, you're probably out of the race anyways. And they do use the official iRacing points system.
Alright, and we will get the cars gridded up in just a few moments. Now, this has gone split. This race has gone split. There were 36 drivers signed up for the session, so 18 cars went into one split, 18 cars have gone into another split, and a lot of those drivers probably hit the load button a few moments ago and still waiting. There's one thing about this track being so giant, as you just mentioned, Richie, that the Nürburgring, inevitably on any kind of a simulation or video game program you're going to run, it's going to take a couple extra moments to load. Hopefully we should have all 18 drivers here in time for the start of a race, and they'll be able to get in their practice time. Because let's be honest, when it comes to a track this tricky, we're going to get a bit spread out here as the laps go on, as we get an eye's view. There you see a bird's eye view. There you see the clock in the top left corner counting down the time we have left in practice, just over a minute, and then they will be advancing to the race session.
Yeah, this place is wonderful to drive. It took me, when this track came out on iRacing, I played it for 9 straight hours. And it took me that long just to do one complete lap. And it's just an amazing place to memorize. But once you get it down, it's my favorite track next to Indianapolis to get on there. So it's going to be an interesting race. These guys are going to have to keep it in between on the pavement. As you can see, there's no runoff. So once you go off, you're hitting something. So, and those curbs are very mighty. So you got to stay off the curbs as well. Setup's key as far as because they got that long straightaway at the end, and so it should be a good race.
All right, let's have a disclaimer here. We believe here at the GSRC that what's actually happened here is we have something called a snake split. Now, normally iRacing will take the 18 drivers with the highest I rating and put them in the top split, and the 18 drivers with the lower I rating and put them in the bottom split. From our information right now, we don't believe that's what's happened. It's kind of been a mixture of them that could have something to do with just the size of the track, the amount of time that it takes to load. But what that does mean is not all of the big names are going to be in this race. However, we do still have a lot of big names. Rucola, Lepisto, and Valimaki are all there. And let's take a look at our starting lineup. And no drivers coming into this race for qualifying time. So it looks like it's going to be based on iRating. Rucola and Lepisto up there. Sammy Valimaki and Carl Townsend on row number 2, ahead of Diego Sanchez and David Roth. Michael Sullivan and Brenton Parker on row 4, ahead of Sam Winton and Fabrizio Raffa on the 5th row.
Coming up for row 6, we have Francois Gagne in 11th spot. 12th will be Paul Schwind. 7th will be Christopher Michael Howard, and Stephen Brown. Row 8 will be Dale Robertson and Caleb Selner. And then we're getting to the last row there.
All right, a little bit of technical difficulties. The last row you mentioned there, Richie, is going to be Russell Hamilton and Ertan Karadag. Now, I take back what I said. One driver did qualify. Diego Sanchez, he's on pole, but he's not going to lead into the first turn as we go racing here. Carly Rucola already alongside him in the one machine. Sanchez holds on to the top spot. Rucola on the back of him. Lepisto on the back of him. Top 3. Breaking away here in the early stages, a standing start, and one of the most trickiest racetracks in the world, arguably, but they're all clean so far as they work their way down the hill through the twisty bits, and then they'll get to open it up at rear end of Sanchez's car. Already stepping out, Rucola all over the back of him and Lepisto. As we mentioned, these top 3 starting to break away, but Sanchez is under too much pressure. He might not be able to hold on to the top spot. He's not going to be able to hold on to second. Rucola takes the lead in the 1. Lepisto up to second in the 2. And top 3 have gapped at P4 and P5. And then all of those 5 broke away from the rest of the field.
Yeah, they did a really good job. Andy Lepisto got into the grass a little bit going over the jump there, and he saved it. But those guys fought really hard to get by Diego, and now they're starting to check out. Come around this long, sweeping right-hander, down the hill to the foxhole. Huge drop, and then a big compression, and then back up to probably, for me, one of the trickiest sections here.
Yeah, they just went through that long right-hander, and now they are going to climb up to the top of the hill here with still the top 2 nose to tail. Rucola leading Lepisto. They had couple close moments while they were following Sanchez, who is still, he was the only qualifier for this race, is still holding on down in 3rd place in his number 5 machine, but David Roth closing in on him on the number 6 car as they work their way through the infield, although I'm pretty sure you could call this whole track an infield.
Yeah, then they go back downhill through this next tricky section. This next corner is really tough because it's a little bit off camber. Braking's important. I've crashed many times coming up to this next section, just driving in a little too deep. Real important, though, because as they go downhill, it goes sleepily back uphill, and they're going to be there in just a second. And then it leads onto that uphill straight, which is probably the most important corner on this whole track is to get right.
We're watching Lepisto on screen here. He is one of the Ligier drivers, currently sitting 2 seconds back from Rucola. Lepisto has been fast all season long, Richie, but every now and then he has slipped up. This is one track where you cannot afford to slip up at all. I know they get 17 incident points. You don't want to use any of those.
Yeah, you're not probably going to be able to use any of them and finish the race. And then you're correct. Andy's run strong most of the season, but he seems to have one major moment in the race that kind of takes him out of it. So he's got to have full focus to be able to hold on to that second position and chase down Rucola. These guys have gapped Diego Sanchez by about 4 seconds already. And there's that section I was talking about coming uphill. It just goes up, 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 up. And it's one long straightaway, kind of sweeps back and forth, very tough to pass. Then we're going to come up through this right-hand bend and up to the famous carousel, which is right ahead of them. Right there, you see it on the camera coming up.
Stephen Brown looks like he's our first victim to the Nürburgring walls. He's running around with a lot of damage in his number 14 machine that started back there in 14th place, running 15th right now. He was up to 12th, I believe, at one point before this incident happened, still continuing. But man, this is a track where you're going to want all that downforce.
Yeah, you can see when he hit the wall too, he just kind of ping-ponged all across the track. Here he goes, one wall, next wall, facing straight, and away we go. But he's got a lot of damage on the front of that car.
Honestly, I'm surprised it's not a bit worse. 17 cars currently running around on track, including Brown. I know we mentioned we had 18 drivers in this session. Russell Hamilton is currently sitting in the pits in his number 17 machine. I don't see too much damage, but that's not to say he wasn't involved in something earlier on in the lap, but we just didn't pick up. Obviously, a long lap around here. As you mentioned, Richie, only 8 laps, but we haven't even completed one.
Now we're barely halfway around, and where these guys are, they're at the top of the hill. Ooh, and Andy Pisto has lost it. He's lost it going over the drop.
Oh, the driver's coming around, but be careful. And he tries to spin to get out of their way, but collects the wall. And we said this is a track where Lepisto cannot afford one of those mistakes that, unfortunately, we've came to know that he makes sometimes. And it's bit him on lap number 1.
Yeah, and he's exited to the pits there, but you can see a ton of damage. And you just got a little light over that hill. You got to make sure the steering wheel is straight as you go over there. Otherwise, that's exactly what you're going to see what happens. And meanwhile, that's given Kalle Ruokola about a 10-second lead over David Rolfe.
And pit road, unfortunately, has just got very busy. Peter Schwein's car is now down there. Christopher Michael Howard's car is down there. And Ertan Karadag. So some drivers were able to navigate their way through the first half of a lap, Richie, but not so fortunate in the second half of a lap.
Yeah, I mean, if you just try to survive the 8 laps, you're going to get some good points. Meanwhile, I'm watching Diego Sanchez is in the draft of David Rolfe, who's gotten by him somewhere. They're on the back, that long straight, coming up to the end of the first lap.
So it looks like of our 18. Oh, and Diego in trouble.
Oh, yeah, it's coming up that hill, and you're coming so fast up to that section. Here's the replay. And you just kind of have to brake. The car gets light. Here we come. Right about here, you got to start braking for it. And he hits the curb. That's one thing you don't want to do. Those curbs are huge. And fortunately, he's right at the entrance of the pit lane, so he could kind of just make his way in without getting a tow. But his race is over.
Yeah, well, his car is so bent up, the steering on that they actually hits the wall coming into pit entry. But if you're ever going to crash at the Nürburgring, Richie, if there's ever a good place to crash, he found it because, like you said, he's right there at pit entry. Dale Robertson also been in his number 15 machine going quite slowly, so I don't know if he's had a little bit of contact on the first lap. And Stephen Brown, we saw he had damage early in the lap. He has spun at pit entry. He's trying to make pit road. I wonder if he was looking for pit entry and almost missed it.
Yeah, it looks like a little bit of trouble getting into there. I think I counted 6 cars in the pit lane already out of the 18 that started. Meanwhile, we got David Rolfe. He started 6th. He's up to 2nd. He's done a good job. Made one pass on Diego, but he's just kind of kept it together, even though he's 12 seconds behind Kalle. What's going to be tough for Kalle, he knows he's 12 seconds up and just trying to maintain that focus for the next 7 laps.
Again, for our viewers just tuning in, we're working lap 2 of 8 right now. If you're not seeing names that you thought you would be seeing in this race, what we believe has happened is that our 2 splits have actually gone snake splits, so it hasn't been entirely based on pure iRating, and we have some of our stronger iRating drivers also in the second split going on right now. This is the one we've picked up. It featured Rucola, Lepisto, several other big names. Unfortunately, Lepisto already out of the race, which is, or at least out of contention for the win, which is great news for Rucola, Richie, because he's opened up over a 10-second lead already.
Yeah, he's quite a bit faster than these other guys behind him, and like I said, his challenge is going to be just to maintain that focus. And we got on board. There's David Wolf. Oh, that's Rucola right there, just kind of cruising along. He could take it easy for the next 6.5 laps.
Is it? You can't really take anything easy around here, I would imagine, Richie. I mean, this has got to be the epitome of one of those tracks where even if you're out there with 20 seconds of clean air in front of you and behind you, you can't let your guard down because, as we saw with Lepisto and several other drivers on lap 1, all it takes is one slight miscalculation and your race is over.
Yeah, there's no runoff room, so if you do go off, you're hitting something. This is one of those classic tracks where you don't really race anybody around you. You just purely focus on the track for the whole time and then just see where that puts us. If you focus on the guy in front of you only, that's where you're going to clip a curb or drop a wheel, and then you're going to be out of the race.
And even on lap number 2, it looks like we have 10 cars currently circling the racetrack, although hopefully some of those in the pits will come out for repairs. And only 2 on track that I can see are within striking range of each other, and that's about the third. And Valamarki has Brenton Parker not too far behind him. Valamarki in the number 3 car started 4th, Parker off to a good opening lap. He started back down in 8th position, already up into 4th on lap number 2. Granted, a lot of that was via avoiding attrition. And Sam Winton behind him, 5th place, off and back on. Not often you get away with that.
Oh, that was lucky for Sam for sure. Yeah, you don't get to do that very often. And here he comes, and he's coming up to the carousel, drops in a little bit hot, and it's tricky. You want to get on the gas, but then the car's unsettled, and he loses it, brushes the wall, but keeps going. And yes, the best battle on the track is that Brenton Parker and Sammy Villamaki on the, which I'm watching right now, and they're coming up to the last third of the track here. And so if he can get a little bit closer, he might be able to pick up the draft of Sammy, but it doesn't look like he's right there. Just, yeah, he's about 1.8 seconds behind.
Yeah, that's really your, I mean, obviously your best passing opportunity. Some would say in these delicate cars, really your only passing opportunity, Richie, is down that long back straight. So Brenton really does want to make his move for third. As you mentioned, he's got to get a little bit closer to Sammy before they get to that back straight, because he's not going to be able to pick up a good enough toe to make a position from that far back, I don't think. Unless, of course, he's carrying less downforce on his number 8 machine than what the number 3 has.
Coming up to the mini carousel here, and I think he needs about 3/10 closer before he really picks up that draft. But you're right, that back straightaway. Oh, and he almost, Brenton Parker bumped the wall coming out of that mini carousel there. He's going to continue on, but he did lose some time. But this net back straightaway is really the only true straight section of the track, so you can make the pass cleanly here. That's one thing about this place is if you get caught behind somebody at the very beginning of the lap, you get really frustrated, and you can lose a lot of time if they're holding you back.
Meanwhile, Carly Rucola already coming around to complete lap number 2. I know our lap guy didn't quite indicate how long it took to get around here. Carly Rucola just turned a 6-minute, 7-second lap here, and Dale Robertson just took toe to the pits, I believe. Dale Robertson is out of the session. Yeah, he just had an incident, got into the wall lightly. That was a shame because he was one of our drivers that was still running out there on the lead lap.
I do notice that Diego Sanchez has gotten himself back out there. He's our pole sitter, so he's got his car fixed, and he does have some damage on the front wing. But he is continuing on. I think he knows that if he just survives it, he could probably maybe even get back to the top 5. You never know.
Change for 6th place, uncontested. Michael Sullivan saw Carl Townsend running him down from behind and yields the position in turn number 1. Carl Townsend now sits about 10 seconds down the road from Sam Winton, and he was a second a lap quicker than him last time by, so we'll keep an eye on that.
Yeah, it sounds like a lot, 10 seconds, but on this track with the 100 some odd turns, 154 corners, you can make that time up pretty quick if you just stay clean, and that person in front of you has a little bit of problem, which we've already seen Sam have.
So currently your race leader is Carl Rucola. He already has an 18-second lead now over David Roth back there in 2nd position, who holds another 15 seconds over Sami Villamarchi in 3rd place, and it's only lap number 3 of 8. Not a long though between Villamarchi and Brenton Parker back here in 4th position still, despite the the scare that we saw Parker have not too long ago. Still holding strong in 4th place, and he's got almost 10 seconds ahead of Sam Winton, currently rounded out our top 5.
Yeah, right behind Sam Winton is Carl Townsend, who made that pass for 6th place, although he is 12 seconds, almost 13 seconds behind Sam, so not much battle there. Michael Sullivan's been able to hang on to Carl for that 7th spot. He's about 3 seconds behind, but he's kind of steadily falling back here, so they're kind of separated out. Meanwhile, Francois Gagne's running in the 8th spot all alone there, and then behind him, Fabrizio Raffa in the 9th spot all alone.
We've got to remember at the end of the day, Richie, these drivers are all racing for a championship. Obviously, that Rucola is going to be looking a bit more healthy in after this round. Haven't seen Rucola every single race this season. He is a former champion of the Lotus 79 official series on iRacing. The times we have seen him, of course, he has put on impressive performances. Got 2nd place finish at Virginia International Raceway, and he dominated the street race over there in Detroit at Belle Isle.
Yeah, Belle Isle is similar to this, I mean, in the way that you can't make any mistakes. You got to have full focus, and he did a great job at Detroit and just kind of dominated. And the same thing that's happening here. Seems like on these tracks that you got to have full focus and can't make any mistakes. He shines, but like you said, he hasn't run all the races, so he's a little bit down on that points table.
Oh, got a car in the wall. It's Stephen Brown again. He had trouble on lap number 1. He got back on track in the 14 machine, but I don't think he's going to be able to come back from this one. You see, he just took a tow to the pits there. His wings look even more bent than they were before. Oh, and that would be why.
Yeah, I don't think he survived that one.
Do you think that's why they stopped racing the Lotus 70, the F1 cars back here in the 70s?
I believe it. That was a good example exactly why they don't race there anymore. Although the GT3 cars, they race there a lot. The VLN series comes here quite a lot, and they've done some safety improvements, repaved the track, things like that. So the track is quite active as far as full races, but nothing like open wheel racing or anything like we're watching right now.
One thing I would be curious, Richie, if ever we saw open wheel racing here again. We've seen a couple of GT races here very recently in the past. I believe it happened in the 24 hours of the Nürburgring, where it started raining hard on the far portion of the course, and of course the drivers were 4 miles away from pit road. They were skating off everywhere. Boy, that would be interesting to see in an open wheel race. And talking about interesting to see, what we got on board here, Sam Winton, I think he had a bit of a scare a couple of turns ago.
Yeah, well, he got away with a real cheap one right there. Just kind of got up on the curbing, did a little slide, a full 360, and did not hit one thing. So used up one of his 9 lives on that.
But it does mean Carl Townsend is within striking range of him now. Now, Carl must have had something happen to him early on in the race because he started in 5th position and he's been and off goes Winton hard in front of him. That's gift for Townsend. It's not over for Winton. He continues to spin, hit walls, toe to the pits, and there goes his chances of the top 5.
He used up his free pass on the first one before that, but yeah, it gave that a little bit of gift there to Carl Townsend, moves him right up to 5th spot. And that's good for him. You know, he started, he started 5th. Now he's back to 5th, so he's back to where he started this race.
See, pit road continues to look busy, but all of these cars aren't necessarily out of a race. We've seen cars going in and out all race long. As a matter of fact, Russell Hamilton's car is currently in the pits. I know he was out on track not too long ago. Up front, Rucola has extended his lead to 25 seconds over David Roth as we approach the halfway point of this race. As you say, Richie just needs to keep racing the track, running his own race, not minding anything else that goes on. He's really not going to have to deal with a whole lot of lap traffic out here, this track being 6 minutes long, 12 miles around.
Now, we only have 9 cars on the track, I believe, at the moment, with Diego Sanchez, who started first, got back out. He's hanging in there. Once again, it's all about that points battle. So if he just kind of hangs in there, although he's 5 minutes behind Kale, so, you know, we'll see if he's able to stay on the lead lap. But Kale's 7 seconds a lap faster than David Rolf in second. So, you know, David's got 26 seconds, 25 seconds over 3rd place. So he just kind of has to do the same thing. Just stay focused. You know, drive it like a practice session. Don't worry about your lap times. Just worry about just keeping it on the pavement.
The battle for 3rd place, and I call it a battle because it's the closest thing we have to one out there right now, hasn't gone away. We documented a couple of laps ago, or maybe it was only 1 lap ago, but it feels like a couple of laps. Brenton Parker had a slide, brushed the wall a little bit, but continued. That set him back from Sammy Villamarchi. Well, he is continuing to keep that gap within 3 or 4 seconds. In fact, right now it's just 2.5. And with these two coming around to complete the halfway point at the end of this lap, and Parker has got to think about not making another mistake so that he can set him up to make a pass down the back straight, or at least take advantage, take the opportunity to take 3rd position if Villamarchi does make an error.
Yeah, he's just got to kind of keep the heat on Sammy there. And as we've seen, it's real easy to make a small mistake that turns into a big mistake. That last lap, Brenton Parker was about 0.6 faster than him, and he's only 2.9 seconds behind. And you're going to see it kind of ebb and flow. Some people are faster in one section and then slower in another. And, you know, the way this track is laid out, it's so long that you could easily lose 2 or 3 seconds in just one sector. And so we'll keep an eye on this battle, and that's for that podium spot. You know, we don't do a podium, but it still means a lot in your mind. And also Brenton Parker's, you know, he's got kind of a lower I rating, so this is going to be a good points haul for him if he can finish where he is, or maybe a little bit higher.
Russell Hamilton was one of our drivers who been running out there a couple laps down. He just put it in the wall and had to take a tow to the pits, damage to his number 17 machine, which was the same, Richie, because even though he had been in the pits early on, I didn't really see a lot of damage to his car, but the same can't be said this time.
No, he's definitely calling it a day as he sent it to the garage, but it looks like he just got in the corner and just kind of understeered straight off into the wall. It's not really a normal spot to go off, so I don't know if he just lost a little concentration, but it looks like he's done for the day. Meanwhile, Brenton Parker, he's lost about another second to Sammy so far in the section they're at. And this, to me, is where they're at coming up this hill. It's probably the the one place you can lose or gain the most time if you don't get a good run, because it's so steep. The cars, they just struggle horsepower-wise, and so if you don't come up here very quick, you can't make it up, and you got to wait till you come up to the carousel, which looks like Sammy made a little bit of a mistake at the end of that straightaway because Brenton just gained back a second on him.
Let's give a shout out to our driver in second place. I know he's been on screen quite a bit today, but we really haven't documented what a, and I really hope I'm not jinxing him here, what a solid performance this has been so far by David Rofe. I mean, Rucola in front of him, as we mentioned, is a former series champion, and Rofe's here. Granted, he's losing about 8 seconds a lap to him, but he's keeping his car clean, he's staying on track, and 8 seconds a lap on one of the longest, trickiest tracks on the circuit to a former series champion, man, that is actually quite respectable, especially for the driver of the number 6 car here. David Rofe having a solid performance out here today so far. Not complaining.
Yeah, he's doing very good, and started 6th, running up in 2nd spot, so this will be a good points day for him as well. Still watching this Brenton Parker and Sammy Villamaki battle. Once again, it's kind of ebb and flowing. He's lost another second to Sammy, and they're coming up to the part that I just kind of love. I love the flow of this section of this track. It's just back and forth, and it's almost flat out through this whole section. That hill they just went over is where Annie Lapisto crashed on the opening lap. So you go over a big drop, coming up to a nice sweeping corner to the right, and kind of now they're coming up to the mini carousel, which will connect them to the back straightaway, and this is where you can get a little bit of a rest. You work pretty hard to get to this point, so you can kind of breathe, just keep your foot down. You got about I don't know how long it takes about 6 or 7 seconds to get down the straightaway, maybe a little bit longer, but here they are. They're on that straightaway, flat out, full throttle the whole way.
And you just saw at the top of the foul screen that Rucola reset the fastest lap of a 6:06.7. Not only the only driver in the 6:06s right now, the only driver sub 6 minute 10s. The second fastest driver we've seen on track today has been David Rofe at a 6:13.3. I'll tell you what, Richie, we've documented who's in our top 5 right now. Rucola, Rofe, Valimaki, Parker and Townsend. They're all having solid races out there. We've still got 9 cars on the lead lap, so let's bring our camera back to these drivers in 6th, 7th, 8th and 9th. Michael Sullivan currently running in 6th position. He's about a minute and a half back of our race leader right now. Then Francois Gagne. We've seen him a couple of times earlier this season. He is up 4 spots from where he started. He started in 11th. He is up to 7th. One of our bigger movers out there today, actually. Behind him, Fabrizio Raffa is back there in 8th position in the number 10 machine. And then Diego Sanchez, despite all his troubles, still out there on the lead lap.
Yeah, nice job to Diego. I know he probably disappointed starting on pole and having that accident, but he hung in there, and unfortunately though he's about 30 seconds slower than Kale with the damage he has, so at that rate he's going to get lapped in about the next lap or a lap and a half.
But yeah, Villamarchi in trouble. He's off. He's lost a position, maybe more. Parker's finally gone by. That was the opportunity Parker's been waiting for, putting the heat on, as you mentioned, Richie.
Yeah, you can easily just be watching your mirrors, watching your relative box a little too much and not focusing. This is where you got to run the track, not the guys around you, and go over that hill, come up to the next section, and just lost it. Just got it, and then just nosed into the wall. So it just looks like sometimes you can get a little bit confused. Sometimes these turns are blind, and you think you're somewhere where you think you're not, and your braking and your acceleration points are all out of whack.
And Valimaki is done. He is disconnected from the session. He is not going to come back. I was curious to see if he'd be able to get back out on track and battle someone around 6th or 7th position, because those 9 drivers we mentioned as being on the lead lap, right now, they were the only 9 still showing on track. Now it's down to 8. we still have a few drivers sitting in the pits. Russell Hamilton, Paul Schreind, and Caleb Selner's cars are down there. I don't know if they're getting extensive repairs or if they're calling it quits.
So as we come around, when Diego Sanchez comes around and for the end of this lap he's going to move himself up one more spot. So just kind of staying out there. He's going to gain points. And, I keep saying it, but sometimes it's easy just to kind of give up and just say, screw it, I'll just run another day. And but he's back out there driving around with that damage on the front end. And good for him.
I just had the scary thought, Richie. You ever wonder if we brought the NASCAR cars to this circuit, if they would do caution laps here?
Yeah, I don't think those guys would make one lap after watching them yesterday. The Xfinity cars bouncing around at Watkins Glen. So the problem is there's not much room to move around. You can't make a mistake, and I think the biggest problem with the stock car is they just don't stop very well. And these corners come up on these guys so fast. You got to have, amazing brakes to get it stopped and turned without hitting something.
I was more concerned about the fact that caution laps around here would be scary, although I guess you could do that. I mean, obviously they do it in like the 24 hours of a Nürburgring, but boy, I'm sure iRacing drivers would not be looking forward to a yellow flag lap around here. Though if you ever got a wave around, that would be fun.
It'd be a long wave around, but I guess they could do it in sections, just have a yellow flag sections. I guess if they implemented that would work out. Right now, not much going on out there. We got Kale 36 seconds ahead of David Rolfe, who's doing a great job. Starting sixth, running second, and then 45 seconds to Brenton Parker in third, and another 21 seconds to Carl Townsend. Closest battle is Michael Sullivan to Carl, about 15 seconds behind.
And if there's ever needed to be any proof, oh, is Rolfe's in trouble? Rolfe just took a tow from the pits. I said I hoped I hadn't jinxed him. Let's find out what happened here. Hopefully this was something small, but I don't know.
Just got a little understeer. This is a tricky section. The curbs are really tall in this area, so if you do clip a curb, it's just going to pitch you off to the other part of the track. And here he comes, going over the hill. I love this section. Just kind of loses the rear end, and there he goes, and took a tow real quick, so he knew his day was over.
Yeah, obviously knocked the wheels into the wall there. Quite a hard hit. So Rolfe has not disconnected from the session. Obviously had to take a long tow to the pits. Right now, Rucola is going around the pits, and Rolfe will be showing on timing and scoring as in second place still. The concern now for David Rolfe and his fans is how much damage does he have to take? How long is that tow going to be? Essentially, how far is he going to fall back through the field? If he loses an extra half a minute or a minute or so, he could fall down to fifth. Another 2 minutes, he'd be back around seventh or eighth. But then he has another like 5 or 6 minutes of repairs he could take before he has to worry about Diego Sanchez.
Yeah, good job, Diego. Once again, just hanging in there. But now Brenton Parker has moved up to second. Great job for him, and Carl Townsend at third. But now the spread between first and second is a full 1 minute, 25 seconds. And I got to give credit to Kale Rucola as well. He hasn't let up on the gas. He's still running 6:06.9s, and he's just motoring along, just putting his stamp on this race.
For our viewers just joining us as we enter the closing laps of this race, granted that means we still have about another 20 minutes of racing. Some of you may be wondering why there are some big names who are not showing up in this race. Well, the iRacing actually snake split our 2 splits that are going on right now. So a lot of the big names are in a separate race. And what we will try and do here at the end of this event is bring the results from that race to you guys as well. We went with the one that had several of our Big, recognizable names racing for a championship, racing for wins throughout the season in it. Rucola, obviously, winning the race right now, former series champion in the Lotus 79 official series. We also had Antti Lepisto in this race earlier. He was running in second on the opening lap when he made an error and put it on the wall. Unfortunately for Lepisto, not the only driver in this race who has been able to say that.
No, this track has caught out a couple of people, and it shows with only about 9 cars on the track running. We've got a few people in the pits that are still there, maybe waiting to get some repairs, and they could still hang in there and get a top 10 if we have some other people drop out. But they don't call it the Green Hell for nothing, so it's definitely a tricky place, but it's the most rewarding when you do it right. It's a lot of fun to drive.
And Roth is done. He has disconnected from the race. That takes us down to 7 cars left in this event, all on the track, all still on the lead lap, albeit maybe not for much longer for Diego Sanchez.
No, he's right in front of Kalle Ruokola. From Ruokola's in car, you can kind of see him up in the distance, and here's the guy that started on the pole, and he's now about to get lapped. So it's disappointing, but Diego's going to get some points out of this just by hanging in there.
We must have lost someone else this lap, Richie. I'm trying to scan down the order, see who it was.
Meanwhile, Brenton Parker's hanging on tough for that second spot. He's the number 8 car, so in second, and that's great for him. And then Carl Townsend, he's in third, although he's 24 seconds behind Brenton. That's the number 5 car running in third, and right behind him, Michael Sullivan. He's a close 16 seconds. That's our closest battle on the track, and he's running in fourth. And Francois Gagne, we've seen him run a few times this year. He's hanging in there at 6th spot, the number 11 car, so he started 11th. So good job for him, just kind of keeping it clean.
Yeah, and we haven't lost another driver this lap because it's such a long lap around. My time in scoring hadn't accounted for the fact that Sami Välimäki had crashed out, which of course actually happened a few moments ago. But in terms of Nürburgring time, that was not too long ago. And what this does mean, having 2 of our top 5 crash out within the last lap or so, Richie, it has moved pretty much everyone in the entire field up 2 positions. So as you mentioned, Carl Townsend, Michael Sullivan, and Francois Gagne soon all going to be running in our top 5.
Yeah, and it's just a testament, like I say, you just race the track and just kind of see where it plays out. If you try to drive too hard, kind of what we saw from Antti on that opening lap, looked like he was trying hard to stay with Kalle, and unfortunately ended his day and gave Kalle Ruokola an easy one here if he can keep it going. Although he's not giving up, I'm watching him, and he's sliding the thing all over the place. And as the fuel burns off, the car's going to get better and better, and hopefully he just keeps it going. But he showed at Detroit that he has the mental strength to be able to keep it on the pavement and these tricky tracks that we run at.
And I started making the point a little moment ago, and then I believe a car went off, so we got distracted by that. But to give you an indication of the fact that the more laps you do here, the more experience, the faster you get. On lap 4, we still had about 10 cars running. Every single one of those cars set their fastest lap of a race. And it will be interesting, actually, as Rucola comes around to complete lap 6 of 8 laps to see if he's able to improve on these 6:06.792, the fastest lap of a race so far. And yeah, he just took almost another second out of it. 6:06.076.
Yeah, that's pretty fast around this place. And but it's one of those places that you either love or hate, and if you do love it, you get kind of in a flow, and you just kind of find a rhythm, and you just get going faster and faster. It's just about knowing where you're at, knowing what's coming up. It takes a lot of memorization. I did the 24 hours of Nürburgring here, in a Miata not that long ago, and it was a lot of fun. Even though we crashed out, it was a lot of fun, and that car is pretty slow around this track, but it's still it still is a big challenge to get it right.
Carl Townsend running in 3rd place. His car is still on track, still in one piece, but it almost wasn't. Just about 20 seconds ago, he ran wide, exiting a turn, almost clobbered the wall, but he was able to keep it on course, and he'll take a bit of a breather. He has about 20 seconds over the next car on track. Michael Sullivan, his replay.
Yeah, we're watching him right here on board. And you just got to kind of, like I say, you can't look at your F3, your relative box, see where everybody's at. You just got to focus on the road in front of you. Clips that curb and just brushes the wall. Doesn't even look like he barely even got out of the gas there, so he got a little bit lucky.
Now, I know I had a race, I believe it was in the Lionheart IndyCar Series earlier this season. We were racing that over at Mosport, one of the trickier road courses, and I actually put a piece of tape over my position indicator for that race, Richie, because I'm like, I don't want to know what position I'm in. You know, I don't want to know who's running around me. I just want to run my own race. Did you ever do something like that in real-world IndyCar racing, where you told your crew chief, don't tell me where I am, I want to worry about my race, not anyone else's?
Yeah, sometimes you just got to stay focused on what you got to do. It's a little different in a real car, where you don't have, you know, these timing boxes up and down where you can put them up. So you really don't know where anybody's at unless they're telling you. So sometimes it's better off just telling them to shut up, let me drive. The only thing you want to know is if the leader's coming around, but other than that, you just drive. Oh, and I just watched Carl Townsend just drive it into the wall all on his own. He's still going, but the replay's coming up.
He might have got away with this one, Richie. It looks like the suspension bent right back into place for him.
Yeah, he just kind of came into the corner and he just went straight on. I don't know what happened. Just lost a little focus. I mean, sometimes you just blink wrong and you miss the corner.
All right, so we mentioned there's currently 2 splits going on. It's a snake split, so some of our top performers are racing over in the other split, and we'll get a full race results for you. Now, I believe one of those drivers is Barry West, and unfortunately, he's here talking to us now, so I'm gonna... Barry, did things not go the plan over in that split?
Not quite. Did you see the incident that happened on, I think it was the second lap, was it? First lap. I don't know why. Adam Fraser was very fast. I think he qualified 3rd, or his car was number 3. But he started from the pit lane for whatever reason. Whether he missed the start on that, I don't know. But he was driving like a maniac trying to catch up. I was going to let him go. I wasn't going to lift, but I was going to let him by. And then when we came to the end of the long straight, what's it, Dot and Go Ho? I got touched, rear wheel got touched into the barriers, so I'm upside down. I ruined my race, ruined Pekka Kelahara. Was really patient through that lap. He dive bombed him before he bombed him, though. Made him have to lift. He managed to survive, but then of course he couldn't avoid me when I made off the track. I thought it was very irresponsible driving, to be honest, and you know, obviously not happy about it. I was up to Robert Simpkins from 17th on the grid, going well and looking good for a top 10 place. And then, I mean, Adam, he went into the barrier, but he's got no damage at all. He's got a bit of damage on his front wing, and I'm out of the race. And as a response to that accident, there's 3 or 4 other drivers out of that race, if you watch what happened afterward. I'm not very happy at all. Especially when this is the 4th race this week, and I've only finished one, and the other incidents are my fault, because I know how difficult this track is. And to finish 8 laps around here without touching the barriers is not an easy thing to do. But to take people out like that, I mean, it's actually reckless.
I gotta confess, Barry, we've been keeping our eye over on this race with Rucola and Lepisto, so it sounds like, unfortunately, in our other split we've got going on, not a whole lot of contenders left after the first couple of laps.
Wow, that is bad then, isn't it? Yeah. How come it's split like that? Is it people didn't do qualifying times, or?
We believe it's something along those lines, or iRacing. But meanwhile, I'll tell you what, over in this race we've been watching, Barry, Rucola has just taken a whole second out of his fastest lap as he starts the final lap of his race. Now, next week, of course, things will be back to normal when we head to Motegi. I know you've had some strong performances recently before this week's event. Do you think you can get back on track over there in Japan?
It's not a favourite track of mine, Motegi, I must admit. Yeah, it's quite a technical track in places, and yeah, it's not got a flow to it like some like Alton Park or anywhere like that, I think. But no, it's not one of my favourite tracks, but see if I can keep on the black stuff without somebody hitting me or me hitting somebody and see what comes out of it. So yeah, look forward to it. Yeah.
All right, well, sorry to hear things haven't gone too well over in the other race that's going on right now, Barry, but thanks for coming to talk to us. We look forward to catching up with you next week.
Okay, no problem, Jay. Cheers.
And Richie, unfortunately, while that was going on, it sounded like our pole sitter from this race ran into a bit of trouble.
Yeah, he just kind of sent it off, and then he just got stuck in the barriers, and he kept trying to get out, but he had to finally take a tow. So he's stuck in that 7th spot. So, you know, not a bad day, although I know he's disappointed, or 8th spot, and you know, it's just the way it goes. He did try to keep going and just didn't quite make it. We are on the final lap here of this 8-lap race around the Green Hell. And Kale Rucola has dropped down to a 6:04.841, which is amazing considering the fact that second place is running a 6:25 second lap. So he's just moving along and doesn't care that there's nobody else out there. He's gonna put his laps down and not take it easy.
So that thing going on with the qualifying then, that explains why some of our bigger names have been put down here in what it does actually seem like it's a lower split, but yet it's still probably going to have a high SOF because of a lot of our big names over in racing this official series not turning the qualifying time. Rucola and Lepisto. That would also explain why we saw pretty much the whole grid was lined up in numerical order with the exception of number 5 on pole position of Diego Sanchez, who had that incident just a moment ago.
Yeah, I mean, normally they do the qualifying session before the race, but I think just because of the length of the track, they don't have the time to do it, so they set their qualifying up during the week. And a lot of people don't do it, or they just forget, honestly. They just forget that they got to get in there and put a time in, and probably really didn't think about how they're going to split the grid when they didn't put a time in.
Rucola navigating his way around the final lap. Only 5 other drivers out there in this race can say the same. Brenton Parker, Carl Townsend, Michael Sullivan, Francois Gagne and Fabrizio Raffa. The closest 2 of those on track are Carl Townsend and Michael Sullivan. They're sitting about 9 seconds apart from 3rd and 4th, which, as you mentioned, Richie, doesn't sound like a whole lot, but with as many miles as they have to go at the halfway point of the lap, if Townsend did make a mistake, Sullivan would see on his F3 screen that interval closing down. It might cause him to drive a bit more aggressively in the final stages.
Yeah, and the tires are getting a little bit worn, and I'm watching Michael Sullivan right now, and he is dropping wheels. He is trying hard to close that gap up, but you know, 9.5 seconds is a lot to make up without Carl making a mistake. But you know, I'm sure some of these guys are happy that this is the last lap that they survived. It's going to be a good day for Brenton Parker, number 8 car, starting 2nd, and also Francois Gagne. He's hung in there. He's sitting in the top 5 position. He started all the way back in 11th spot, and same thing with Fabrizio Raffa. He's our last car running at the moment, I believe, and you know, he's going to finish 6th though, and he's the number 10 car.
Meanwhile, After all that, Carly Rucola is into the last portion of the lap. And we've seen a lot of drivers throw it away here today. My excuse, Richie, for always reckon that the end of a lap here is it's the part of a track where you get the least practice on. Everyone learns the first 5 turns when you go out there for practice and you drive 5 turns and then you wreck. You really only get to learn the last portion of the track once you survive the first 3. Once you learn how to survive the first 3 quarters of it. Where Rucola has obviously learned every single apex on this circuit, and it will be interesting to see with the big names that we had in this split how the points in this one will tally up against the points in the other race that has been going on right now. Like we say, next week we'll be at Motegi, things will be back to normal there, and we'll be able to give you a rundown of everything that happened over here in the Nürburgring. And boy, we definitely have seen some drama out there today. Maybe not as many side-by-side battles, although on the opening lap it was definitely exciting watching Rucola and Lepisto work their way by their pole sitter, the number 5 car of Diego Sanchez, who, it must be said, is still going to be ranked in 7th position at the end of this thing, because he wrecked so late on during this Grand Prix. But the driver going to be 6 markers ahead of him on the scoreboard is Carly Rucola, working his way through the final turn across the line, and Rucola is going to win here with a new fastest lap of a race of 6:04.747, and just like a jumbo jet, that is how fast that Lotus 79 was around here today at the Nürburgring.
Yeah, it was great. Great job by Kale. He just kind of kept his focus, got around Diego pretty aggressively, and just took off. He kind of made Ante chase him down and get that mistake on that opening lap, and really no challenge for Kale. So nice job to him.
All right, and Brenton Parker won't cross the line for another couple of minutes, but I'll tell you what, we've got to start getting things wrapped up here as far as the race is concerned. We will be back for a full race rundown along with drive interviews, and what we're going to try and do during this break is get the results of the other race that's been going on as well, so you'll know how all your favourite drivers did in this split and also the other snake split race that has been going on. We will be back here in just a couple of moments on the Global SimRacing Channel. Hello and welcome back to the Global SimRacing Channel's coverage of one of our splits going on here in the Lotus 79 Classic Team Championship from the Nürburgring Nordschleife. In the race we've been covering here today, Carly Rucola came home the race winner. Now we're going to make a request before we go through this rundown. If anyone watching this broadcast was over in the other split and you've got a replay file, we'd appreciate if we could get our hands on that. Contact our director, Andretti. We'll try and get a video recap of that race up later this week. So let's go down the full race rundown from this race that was going on. It was Carly Rucola taking the win by 2.5 minutes over Brenton Parker. Now, you saw Brenton had a bit of a scare right as we were going to break there. He did lose a connection for about 20 seconds, but then he reappeared and it remained in second position, crossed the line ahead of Carl Townsend there in third. Rounding out the drivers on the lead lap were Michael Sullivan, Francois Gagne and Fabrizio Raffa, who I believe is actually just crossing the line right now. He's guaranteed sixth position either way, last car on the lead lap. Diego Sanchez was our pole sitter via being the only driver in this race to turn the qualifying time. He crashed at the start, got back on track, wrecked again late on, but still ends up being ranked in 7th place, ahead of a couple of top contenders all race long, until they got snake bit at the end. David Roper down there in 8th, ahead of Sammy Villamarchi in 9th. Russell Hamilton, you didn't see a whole lot of him today, but he rounds out our top 10.
Yeah, coming in 11th is Sam Winton, who had some problems as well. Stephen Brown didn't really talk much about, but he comes in the 12th spot. Dale Robertson, 13th. Caleb Sellner, 14th. Annie Lapisto started 3rd, got into 2nd, was chasing down Kale. It would have been a good event or a good race if he could have hung in there, but had a problem on that opening lap. It's going to end up 15th. Paul Schwind, 16th. Ertan Karadog, and 17th. And Christopher Michael Howard, I don't even know if he's took the start, but he's going to be credited with 18th position.
All right, and we do have the results. We're not going to be able to show them on screen, but we do have the results from the other race that's going on. The other race that went on. It was won by Michael Vandenberg, and just like Carly Rucola did over here, he dominated his race as well. A 34-second interval between the driver for one car there and the guy who finished in second position, QC Clapp. Now rounding out that podium, another 10 seconds down the road was Several Separ. John Stevens, we've been seeing him have strong performances a lot this season. He put the pressure on Sepp there in the closing stages. Just a couple seconds down the road, Stevens finished in 4th, ahead of Pablo Suarez, was 5th place about a minute back. And boy, Suarez, once again, Richie, was holding up a train all race long, because Ove Trancheret, Kevin Coles were right behind him at the time of the finish line. Charles Eric Lemelin placed down there behind him, and then Keith Horner and Robert Simpkins were the last cars on the lead lap. Just 10 cars finished on the lead lap in that race. Many drivers running into trouble there. We talked to one of them a moment ago. Luis Baboni, Ronnie Nunez, Alexei Heinonen, Adam Fraser, Pekki Kelahara, Steve Salis, Barry West, and Justin Albrecht all were not running by the end of that event. So we watched Rucola win here at the Nordschleife. Michelle Vandenberg also got a win over in the other split. Boy, that will definitely shake things up, I will say, championship-wise, as we get ready to head to Motegi next week.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's going to be a little more classic track. A track is a little bit strange to drive, so we'll see how these guys like it. But I think next time we come to the Nürburgring, I'm assuming Kale and Andy Lapisto for sure will try to put in a qualifying lap.
Yeah, definitely mixed a few things up here today. We're seeing several other big names down here in what I think would have been the bottom split, but pretty much a snake split going on with the way qualifying things worked out. Well, Because of all that going on, we don't actually have time for drive interviews here, but thank you for Barry West for coming to talk to us during the middle of a race. I know he's not entirely pleased with the way things went down in the other race that was going on. Congratulations to Carly Rucola and Michael Vandenberg, as well as our podium finishers in this race, Brenton Parker and Carl Townsend. Our podium finishers in the other race, QC Clapp and Seville Sepp. They rounded out positions 2 and 3 over there. Next week we will be back in action again over at Motegi. We would like to thank all of the organisers and the competitors from the Lotus 79 Classic Team Championship for racing out here today. We know it's definitely tricky to get around this course. We would also like to thank all of the companies that provide the software and hardware for our broadcasts. You can see those all listed on your screen, as well as the guys who provide our music, the guys Eric Etcombe and June Lalonde. They do great stuff, and we appreciate them allowing us to use their music. See the screen for how to get hold of more of their great work. Thanks to the team today, Richie, Amjad and Dougie. If you'd like to find out more about GSRC, visit us at globalsimracingchannel.com. Also on social media on Twitter at GSR Channel, Facebook at facebook.com/globalsimracingchannel, and Instagram at GSRC_gram. All of the upcoming races for our other series are listed on screen, so check those out, mark them down on your calendar, and don't miss another second of exciting racing action. But until next time, race clean, race hard, and we'll see you on the track.